everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, congratulations on persevering to the last presentation before the panel at the end. My fellow speakers did such an amazing job. I feel like I have huge shoes to fill. But yeah, today I'll talk about AI prototyping and what that could mean for your business. If AI prototyping can give you speed, what can turn that speed into real advantage? We'll answer this question through a real case scenario of a Thoughtworks client I worked with, where we went from a messy problem space to a user-tested solution in under a week. And I'd like to make you a promise that at the end of this, I'll give you a one-week playbook, an AI readiness lens that you can use straight away, and a bonus takeaway for the product managers in the house. Do we have product managers here? No? Okay. Do we have people who work with product managers? Cool. You can pass on to them. All right. So here are the three big things that I'll be sharing with you today, supported by that true story I spoke about. The number one is speed. And it's about how AI prototyping in our story that I'm going to share was our discovery accelerator. Number two is readiness, and it's about how we used an AI readiness framework as practical guardrails as we went along and traced also our next steps. And three is about adoption, and it's dedicated to the one big learning we had about the human experience while they were interacting with AI. So you might ask me, okay, speed. What do you really mean, Katie? And what's that got to do with AI prototyping? So I'll tell you a story. There was a digital recruiting platform that wanted to incorporate AI in their product. So they engaged Thoughtworks because they didn't know where to start. We did all the sensible things to start. So we aligned with their strategy. We helped them build an opportunity solution tree to prioritize and pick one high leverage use case. Then we went for some ideation and picked a solution that could potentially take them closer to their overall goal. From there, the questions started multiplying. Okay, so what could that solution actually look like? And would the users adopt it? Would they entrust this AI-powered thing with parts of their job? From here, I think if you picture the old way, you'll be familiar with this narrative, right? So, okay, cool, how could we go about this? Let's run some workshops. Let's whiteboard some stuff, and let's put some sketches together. Then a designer would expertly turn that into some mock-ups, maybe. So that's, you're well into week 2 at least. And then we would circulate that for some quick feedback. So then that ends up being another week. And then by that time, someone comes up with some observations. Oh, but our processes would probably not really support this. And do we have the data to do it? And then you have some enthusiasts who might say, no, this is the new times, we got to do this. Okay, let's settle the matter with some user testing. So you're now into like week 4. And then you go research some participants, some candidates to go through user testing, but then it's really hard to find the right people. Then it's another week or 2. And then finally, let's spike an MVP and then try to test this to get some real data through. And then the leadership starts asking, when are you going to ship? Where's the money at? Where's the value? Does it sound familiar to anyone? It definitely sounds familiar to me. But there's nothing wrong with this process. It's just slow. And assumptions age as we are trying to make decisions. Then the decision debt starts accumulating, and the confidence does not build up as that time goes by. But that was yesterday, because now we have AI prototyping. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is the leftmost part of the Figma Make interface. I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to say this to avoid confidentiality issues. I actually spun up a fresh new prototype that did a very similar thing to what we did to that customer I mentioned to you, I mentioned before. So I went and asked Figma Make, like just basic prompt, right? With a task, design a recruiter console for temporal management. I didn't really need to say what role the model was using because it's just Figma Make, it's what it does. So design a recruiter console for temporal management, and then I specify some instructions on what I wanted to be included in it. So what's expected of that output. So I put the tasks there. I said they should be able to create a vacancy from free text. You should be able to list the right candidates that are suitable and all that sort of stuff. So a few steps there. And then I also put in some guardrails, some overall principles for it to follow. So make AI actions visible, include edge cases. And then when I click submit, this is what I see. So I see it starting to, I don't know, there's some code flying around and it's working out the details for me. Most importantly, it also gave me the reasoning there. So create a high fidelity, I'll create a high fidelity recruiter console for you. So it's great. So at this point, I step out and I'll go grab a coffee or something. And it takes all about 5-6 minutes to see the first version of it coming through. And it's, it's functional. It has a few things I didn't really ask for. It has a little dashboard there with, the data of the candidates I would have worked with. It's simple, but it's functional, and it's good enough for testing. And when I get to, at this point here on my screen recording, I was, exploring and trying to understand what it had done. But it has this thing called create vacancies. So I click on create vacancies, and I land here. I have a little QR code here, so you can have a look yourself if you want. That's the prototype. You'll have a similar experience to, let me get out of the way. You'll have a similar experience to what the candidates doing testing would have had as well. And yeah, in this case, with this client, I spent about 2 hours, of prompting back and forth with Figma Make to render a high-fidelity AI-assisted flow. And by the end of the week, we had user-tested answers to work with, to those big questions that had come up at the beginning. And to me, looking at this, at that point in time, when I first generated this prototype, I was like, wow, talk about an image speaking for 1,000 words. How many images is a working prototype worth? I was really excited. But my client, not so much. They weren't really ready for this speed. So the CPO tells me, how did you go this far on your own, Katie? Like overnight? What do you think you're doing? And I was like, oh. That's when I realized I needed to take them on the journey. So I had to take a step back, and then I did a proper demonstration of the prototype, explaining or showing how it was validating the hypothesis that we had set out to answer the questions that we had set out to answer. And I had them contribute to the prompting. Okay, so this is what this thing can do, and tell me how else you think it should work. So back on track again, in under 5 business days, we had a user-tested end-to-end solution that with clear next steps on how you needed to improve it. And that was very useful. That spoke volumes. And that week really worked because we used AI prototyping as the engine of discovery rather than the prize for finishing discovery. So you might ask me, what was that 5-day discovery really like? So I'll tell you a little bit about it. The first thing is to still start with the strategy. Getting your hands on all strategy documentation and information that you can put your hands on. So OKRs, jobs to be done, North Star metrics. This is, the sorcerer's book. and to speak back to the other talk before. But the aim is to understand what really matters most, what's being promised to the board, what's actually paying for that initiative you're working on, until there's enough clarity that you can actually prioritize, you can understand what might drive ROI, and you can move forward with more confidence. Then you can start actually time boxing your 5-day discovery sprint. I highly recommend starting with problem framing. Even though you may already have strategy documentation there, when you put it all on an opportunity solution tree, which is a tool for prioritization / strategizing by Teresa Torres, whom I greatly admire. She wrote a book called Continuous Discovery Habits. And there she explains how to use how to build and use an opportunity solution tree. And I can't speak enough about how useful it can be when it's well done. So it will allow you to have the strategic goal at the top, and then a layer of opportunities on how you might achieve that goal, and then lower down another layer of what are the problems you need to solve to get there, and then you get to the solutions. It means that every solution you choose to potentially solve with AI or without AI, you can trace it straight back to your goal, you can measure ROI better, it's great. So anyway, then you can prioritize. You can pick one of those ideas right at the bottom. Remember, it's still an idea. You're not completely tied to a solution yet. But with the beginning of an idea that's well-defined enough and you know what's the outcome you need, you can then grab a coffee, put on some focus music, and let it flow. Pick your favorite AI prototyping tool. I used Figma Make for this project, but it could have been UX Pilot, it could have been Lovable, it could have been another one. But the key here is to enjoy that speed of creation that a prototyping tool can give you without necessarily falling prey to its extra creativity. Sometimes it will give you things that you didn't ask for, and you need to still be able to judge. Is that going to help me drive the outcome, or is that going to derail things and increase my scope? So anyway, having done that, and the other thing as well is bring people on the journey. Don't do what I did. So yeah, get people to sanity check with you, bring your customer and the people who are most interested along the journey with you. And then with that, you have something that looks a lot like a fully fleshed solution. Sometimes you need to remind yourself that it doesn't actually work just yet. It is a prototype. There's no real AI doing things. And you can then start drawing out those questions, like what really needs to be true for this solution to stick, for my users to adopt, and for the outcome to come around. So then you can write the testing scripts and book your user testing sessions. For this one, I really recommend actually planning in advance before you start the discovery sprint, so that you don't get derailed through wrangling calendars, which can be really easy to happen. From here, I'd say it's important to run at least 5 user testing sessions so that you can start seeing some patterns. And the other thing here that's really useful is to allow the participants to score their experience in every moment that they go through that workflow. So in this project, we created a little rubric for helpfulness and comfort. So when they finish a step, then we would ask, how helpful was that for you, 0 to 10? And that would tell us about efficiency gain, which was one of the big things with that prototype. And then for comfort, how comfortable would you be to use this? And then to measure trustworthiness. After this, you will have reliable evidence in days, not in weeks, not in months. But that speed is only really useful if the foundations are there to sustain implementing that output. So in short, for that first engine of discovery, that speed, when I say that AI prototyping was the discovery accelerator, this is what I mean. In under 2 hours, I went from an idea to a high-fidelity prototype that, besides making the idea tangible, it enabled us to have answers to those crucial questions, and most importantly, have more meaningful conversations within the delivery squad to know what are our real challenges here for implementing this solution. And then in 5 years of sessions, I had, by using that high-fidelity prototype, I could understand their trust thresholds and how that workflow would actually work for them. And in under 5 business days, I went from a problem that I still needed to frame and refine to user-tested insights and clear direction forward. We moved from opinions to evidence-based insights in 1 week. So the key from here is, how can you actually make that speed shippable and not just, break? And most importantly, how would you be able to repeat this cycle so then you can go to the next idea and to the next idea again? That's when AI readiness is the next engine. Because to drive that continuity, you need to enable your business to be nimble. We're in this ever-changing, fast-paced AI environment. We can't afford to be stagnant. The FOREST framework is an AI readiness lens. It's not a product, it's a lens. It helps you think and define what it takes to be AI ready. FOREST is an acronym and stands for 6 dimensions that start with foundational architecture, operating model, readiness of data, the experience for the humans interacting with AI, that strategic alignment we just spoke about, and trustworthy AI. We can speak a little bit more about the framework later, and if you have, I'll get out of the way again, but that's a white paper under that QR code that will be quite handy to understand a bit more. But it suffices to say that having this framework at our service in that project allowed us to think about what must be true to safely ship what this prototype testing is suggesting, and what must be true to go beyond this feature to bigger next steps. And in our user testing, we noticed that some of these dimensions were very obvious very, very quickly. As an example, as soon as the users started using the prototype, the first question that would come was like, no, but wait, can I actually trust this data? Like, is it actually accurate? Are these candidates actually suitable for this vacancy? Are they actually available? And we had to, that kept derailing testing, and we had to actually say, assume the data is correct and accurate. They couldn't go past that. And then the other one was, so that's for readiness of data. And then the experience for humans and AI, because yes, we were showing them where the reasoning behind what AI was doing and whatnot, but it wasn't straightforward. It wasn't that simple. I'll speak a little bit more about this on the third engine. And the other thing that was very helpful was allowing the customer to self-assess themselves against this framework so that we could identify what could those next steps be, where could they start. So yeah, that QR code takes you to this tool that is for the self-assessment. It's actually quite interesting. And the way we rolled it out is that we asked multiple people in the client space about those same questions so that we could gauge, on average, if everybody could agree on where they were at. It was actually a really interesting exercise. So this brings us to the third engine, which is about the human AI experience. During our experimentation with the prototype, one of the features exposed a real design challenge, which was on the feature where the AI reached out to the candidates directly. It was the AI outreach feature. So it would email and text candidates directly on behalf of the recruiter. And they were very excited about that because massive efficiency gain. But then they were like, no, hey, hang on a minute. I don't like this tone of voice. That's not how I talk to my customers or to the candidates. So they wanted to see and shape what went out in their name. They wanted to have a hand on it and set that up. So we started getting questions about that process. And we understood that it wasn't just about letting them know what the AI was doing and why, But how can that happen at the right point in time? How can we ensure that that experience feels solid enough for the users? So we realized that we needed to reimagine these interaction patterns. So that was the first recommendation that we had forward in terms of that experience. Firstly, how can you implement transparency and give that visibility and rationale, showing the inputs and why the output that came out? Secondly, how to offer personalization controls so that the users can author that voice and that tone that's representing them. We also needed that part about the human in the loop happening in a way that it wouldn't break momentum, to balance the momentum with the oversight that the users needed. And another thing to bear in mind here was that for some, this prototype actually invoked fear. Is this data actually trustworthy? Or is it going to steal my job? So how can we prevent this on the interaction when we design that user experience in a way that we can make the advantages of using AI outweigh that emotional reaction? So the key is to treat all these as product surfaces, not afterthoughts. So be intentional. So to piece it all together, the AI-enabled discovery flywheel, I feel, that ends up being what's the effect of these three engines. Speed through AI prototyping moves us from opinions to tangible patterns and to instant alignment. Readiness through alignment with strategy, your data ready for the AI model to access it and use it and being reliable. Then a foundational architecture that's modular, that's nimble enough for you to implement AI in it. And an operational model in your teams in a way that they are AI savvy, that they understand what's going on, that they are able to implement fast feedback loops. So that readiness will turn that speed into advantage. And it will enable you to move forward with confidence. And lastly, adoption, making your users actually be excited and keep coming back for your product to keep the loop turning. Each cycle will then compound learning and lower risk. So to close, I'd like to go back to my opening question. If AI prototyping gives you speed, what turns speed into advantage? It's AI readiness, so that every next move is decisive and built to endure. And as I promised, here's the 5-day AI discovery sprint. If you work with product managers and you want to send them a little gift, this is it. It is useful. I'm sure you get the slides as well. You can get it from there. I kind of wish I knew this, before we started on that project. And lastly, it's just a bonus takeaway for the product managers as well. It's just what I think are some musts for product managers now. I went to a talk by Marty Kagan, who's another legend in the product space. And he was saying that the product owner role is dead. And that product managers, he literally kept saying, if you're a product owner, you need to find a new job. He kept saying that, which is horrible. But what he really meant was to say about these must things that the must skills that you need to learn. And he said we product managers had to shift from being a product manager to being a product creator. And these were some of the skills that he spoke about. Firstly, you are the sorcerer. To go back to my colleagues before, the strategy is still in your hands. You are in charge of what is to come. So problem framing, deciding what to build. Actually building is no longer the bottleneck. It's deciding what. There's so many options, and it's so quick to go through them. Then having prompt engineering as a craft that you can learn well and refine and practice. And then being intentional about that human UI, human AI experience. So working with the designers to rethink those interaction patterns. And lastly, having an evaluation mindset. It's the responsibility of the whole team, but I think especially the product manager, thinking the products in a way that the safety, the accuracy, the performance, and the cost of implementing AI in your product can have, and making these be the product metrics for the success of your product. So that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you today. Keep in touch.